Around 11% yield. Never cut. Not once. Most income investors spend years hunting for something that pays 6, maybe 7%, and they accept that at some point the dividend disappears. They plan for it. They brace for it. They call it just part of the game. But what if I told you there are investments paying close to double that, some for over a decade, and they have never, not once, reduced a single monthly payment to their investors? And here's the part that feels almost wrong. The safer dividend stocks most people default to, they've cut repeatedly. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what these 4 investments are, why they've held their distributions through recessions, rate hikes, and market crashes, and the specific risks you need to understand before putting a single dollar into any of them. Because here's the thing, most people searching for high-yield income are either settling for 3% in a savings account or chasing something risky without knowing why it's risky. Both of those are expensive mistakes, and I mean that literally, expensive in real dollars every single month you wait. Now, there's one thing about these funds that almost no one talks about, and it has nothing to do with yield. It's actually about what sector one of them invests in. And when I tell you, your first instinct is going to be, that doesn't make sense. I'll get to it in about 2 minutes, but when it clicks, it changes how you think about building an income portfolio entirely. Here's what we're going to go through today. First, I'll show you 4 specific closed-end funds, all yielding around 11% or more, all paying monthly, and none of them have ever cut their distributions, some for over a decade, one for over 2 decades. Then I'll walk through what each one actually holds, not just buzzwords, but real plain English explanations of what's inside. Then I'll break down the risks, because an 11% yield with no cuts sounds almost too good to be true. And if you're thinking that, good, that instinct is worth examining. And by the time we're done, you'll have a clear framework for deciding whether any of these belongs in your portfolio or whether you should stay far away. My name is Jake, and I spend way too much time analyzing closed-end funds, high-yield investments, and income strategies that most financial media completely ignores. If you're someone who's frustrated trying to build real passive income without gambling your retirement on something you don't understand, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it helps. All right, let's get into it. Here's the conventional wisdom most income investors operate on. High yield means high risk means eventual dividend cut. That's the assumed trade-off, and honestly, most of the time, that is true. Funds chasing 11 or 12% yields often resort to what's called a return of capital distribution, meaning they're essentially paying you back your own money and calling it a dividend. That erodes your principal, and eventually the distribution has to come down. But here's what that assumption misses. Not all high-yield funds are structured the same way. Closed-end funds, CEFs, are different from your typical ETF or mutual fund. They raise a fixed amount of capital at launch, trade on an exchange like a stock, and can use leverage and active management in ways open-end funds simply can't. That structure, when run well, can sustain high distributions for a very long time. And the 4 funds we're looking at today have done exactly that. Now you might be thinking, okay, but something has to give, and you're not wrong to think that. So let's look at exactly what's inside these funds, and then you can decide whether the math makes sense for your situation. Let's start with the first fund, Aberdeen World Healthcare, ticker THW. This one is the counterintuitive one I mentioned earlier, healthcare, not utilities, not real estate, not bonds, healthcare. When most people build an income portfolio, they reach for REITs, utility stocks, or bond funds. Healthcare doesn't even register, but THW has been paying 11.67 cents every single month since its IPO. That's since June 2015, nearly 11 years, 0 cuts. Right now, it yields approximately 11%. That number will shift based on the share price when you're watching this video, so always check the current figure before investing. Here's what that means in real dollars. If you put $50,000 into THW at today's yield, you're collecting roughly $458 a month, every month, and that payment amount hasn't changed since the fund launched. The fund holds about 110 different positions: pharmaceutical companies, biotech, medical equipment, healthcare REITs, and a small slice of private venture investments. About 80% equities, around 9% fixed income, and the rest in REITs and startups. Now, and I want to be direct here, some of those holdings are genuine risky. Biotech and venture startups are volatile, and I want to flag something specific. At least one major analyst has issued a serious warning that THW could face a distribution cut in the near term, citing NAV pressure. I'll come back to that in the risk section because it matters. This isn't a utility fund, and it's not a set it and forget it position. One more thing to know. THW has never raised its distribution either. It's been exactly $0.1167 since day one. Flat, consistent, but flat. Next up, BlackRock Multi-Sector Income Trust, ticker BIT. This one launched in February 2013, over 13 years ago, and has never cut its distribution. A significant portion of BIT is corporate bonds across different credit qualities, with meaningful allocations to high-yield debt, mortgage-backed securities, both agency and non-agency, plus securitized products and emerging market debt. It's a genuinely diversified fixed income portfolio. Here's the number I want you to slow down on. BIT uses approximately 30% leverage, meaning for every dollar of investor capital, it's borrowing roughly 30 cents to amplify its returns. Leverage works beautifully when rates are low and credit markets are calm. When rates rise, as they did aggressively starting in 2022, leveraged debt funds get squeezed. BIT's NAV has felt that pressure. It hasn't cut the distribution, but the asset base has taken some hits. There's also a return of capital components in BIT's distributions, meaning a portion of what you receive each month isn't generated income, but rather your own capital being returned to you. That doesn't automatically make it a bad investment, but it does mean you need to monitor NAV closely. I'd classify BIT as a higher risk fund, not a bad fund, but one that deserves a smaller allocation and careful monitoring.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Remember I said there were two healthcare funds? The second one is Aberdeen Healthcare Opportunities Fund, ticker THQ. Same manager, same general strategy. But the difference between these two funds tells you something important about how to think about all of these investments. THQ focuses almost entirely on US healthcare companies, less international exposure, more familiar names, fewer venture startups. It launched in July 2020, making it a younger fund than THW. Now, same category, same manager, similar strategy, and THQ has actually raised its distribution since launch. That's notable. Most funds in this space hold flat or cut. That said, I need to give you the full picture here, because the script most people would read on these two funds stops at the yield. It shouldn't. Analysts have flagged that THQ's high distribution yield currently masks weak NAV performance, and that the fund has become increasingly reliant on return of capital to sustain its payout. When a fund distributes more than it earns, it's returning your own money to you, and over time, that shrinks the asset base. Shares have also recently traded at a slight premium to NAV, which means you may be paying more than the underlying assets are worth. I'm not saying avoid THQ, I'm saying go in with eyes open. Check the NAV trend before you buy. If the NAV is declining steadily while the distribution holds, that's a yellow flag worth understanding. If you want international healthcare exposure, THW gives you that. But whichever of these you're considering, the NAV chart tells you more than the yield number does. The fourth fund is PIMCO Corporate and Income Strategy Fund, ticker PCN. This one launched in December 2001, over 24 years without a distribution cut. Think about what that span includes: the dot-com crash, the 2008 financial crisis, a global pandemic, and the sharpest rate hiking cycle in 40 years. Still paying, every month. PCN focuses on corporate debt, bonds issued by companies, with a portfolio that spans investment-grade and below investment-grade debt, mortgage-backed securities, and other fixed-income instruments. One of its structural characteristics is an emphasis on managing duration carefully, which helped it hold up better than some longer-duration peers when rates rose sharply. Now, a couple of honest caveats. First, while PCN has never had a dramatic cut, dividend growth data over the past 3 to 5 years shows the per-share payout has ticked modestly lower in that window. So never cut is largely true, but deserves the precision that it hasn't been perfectly static either. Small adjustments have occurred. The long-run picture is still remarkably consistent, but I want you to have that nuance. Second, PIMCO funds are notoriously difficult to analyze in detail. They hold complex instruments, things like Croatian government bonds and pools of non-publicly traded company debt that the average investor simply cannot research independently. Some degree of trust in PIMCO's management is required. That's a real consideration. But the 24-year track record speaks for itself. No other fund in this video comes close to that length of history. So here's the trap I see income investors fall into constantly. I'll call it the yield fixation trap. Someone searches for high dividend investments, they see an 11 or 12% yield, the number looks big. They either run away immediately because it seems too good to be true, or they jump in because the number looks big. Neither response is actually informed. The number alone tells you nothing. What matters is the sustainability structure behind that number, how the fund generates income, what it holds, how much leverage it uses, whether return of capital is a significant component, and whether the distribution has been maintained through multiple market cycles. Here's what most people don't realize. An 11% yield with a 24-year track record of no cuts is a fundamentally different investment than an 11% yield from a fund launched 3 years ago in a bull market. Same number on paper, completely different risk profile in reality. The psychology that makes this trap so sticky is that high yields feel either obviously good or obviously suspicious. Neither instinct prompts you to look deeper. And looking deeper, actually understanding what the fund holds, how it's structured, what role return of capital plays, and what the risks genuinely are, is exactly what separates the income investors who build sustainable portfolios from the ones who keep chasing yield and getting burned.
Alright, here's how to actually think about these funds if you're considering any of them. Step 1. Check the NAV trend before anything else. NAV, net asset value, is the underlying worth of what the fund holds. If a fund is paying a big distribution but its NAV is steadily declining, the distribution may not be sustainable long term, even if it hasn't been cut yet. This takes about 2 minutes on a site like CEF Connect. Do this first. For THW specifically, this step is especially important given recent analyst concerns about distribution sustainability. Step 2. Look for return of capital in the distribution breakdown. A fund returning your own capital isn't necessarily disqualifying, sometimes it's a tax strategy, but if it's a large, persistent portion of the distribution, that's the engine of your income slowly shrinking. Check the fund's Section 19 notices, which break down exactly where the distribution comes from. Step 3. Look at the leverage ratio. Anything over 30% is worth treating with extra caution, especially in an environment where rates are volatile. BIT sits at approximately 30%. That doesn't mean avoid it, but it means size that position accordingly, not a core holding, a satellite position. Step 4. Don't over-concentrate in one sector. THW and THQ are both healthcare. If you hold both, you now have a significant healthcare concentration in your income portfolio. That may or may not be what you want, but it should be a conscious choice, not an accident. Step 5. Start with the longest track record fund first. If you're new to CEFs, PCN's 24-year history provides the most evidence of durability. It's not a guarantee, nothing in investing is, but it's the most data you have to work with. Starting there while you learn the category is a reasonable approach. Step 6. Keep any single CEF to a small allocation. These are not set it and forget it investments. They require monitoring. A 5 to 10% position in any one of these funds gives you meaningful income exposure without betting the portfolio on a single fund's management decisions. You came into this video knowing there were high-yield investments out there, but not trusting them. That's reasonable. That skepticism is healthy. What you know now is different. You know the structural reasons some of these funds have maintained distributions through decades of market cycles. You know what questions to ask: NAV trend, return of capital composition, leverage ratio, sector concentration, and track record length. And you know the specific risks that come with each of these 4 funds, including the ones that most videos in this space gloss over. That's not a small shift. Most people spend years in income investing before they even know what a closed-end fund's NAV trend means for distribution sustainability. Here's the honest math of waiting. If you're sitting in a savings account paying 4.5% and one of these funds is paying approximately 11%, on a $50,000 position, that's a difference of roughly $271 a month. Every month you wait to even research this costs you money. Not hype, just the math. So here's the one thing I'd challenge you to do in the next 24 hours. Pull up CEF Connect, search for one of these 4 tickers, THW, BIT, THQ, or PCN, and look at the NAV chart over the last 5 years. That's it. Just look at it. Let the data form your first impression before anything else. If this video helped you, hit that thumbs up. It genuinely helps other people who are looking for this kind of coverage actually find it. Subscribe if you want to go deeper on closed-end funds and high-yield income investing, and I'll see you in the next one.